if your organization is like most organizations, it's trying to do more with less, obviously. And what I'm going to try to talk about is just how to empower business analysts with something called a data platform, what that really means, and how it can help. So, an application, in my view, can be valued kind of across two different dimensions. So, it either helps a business do things more efficiently, or it doesn't. Um, and then it can either use the data to make smarter decisions, or it can't. And the way I see applications kind of falling into two different categories currently is that you have these kind of large custom enterprise applications that they strive to be, I would say, up in this quadrant up here, um, and they may very well uh, land there. So typically, it takes a couple of years for a large organization to gather all the requirements and get to the point where it's actually got that application installed, rolled out to the whole organization. Everybody's using it, and it's starting to get value out of it. It's usually a span of a couple of years, right? Um, and what happens is business can evolve by then, and gradually, not all at once, but gradually, the application, if it's not built in a way that can evolve quickly with the business, it'll gradually, in my opinion, sort of slip down into the low value quadrant where the data becomes not as accessible and it starts to hinder the business process because um, the business, as I said, might evolve, um, but because the application has fixed fields, uh, the um, the people who are using it might start to say, "Oh, we have to use this field for this other thing," when really it means this thing. And what that does is it kind of corrodes the data. It makes it more difficult to get intelligence out of the data in order to make smart decisions. Um, and then on the other side of it, basically, as that kind of happens, and as the business is growing and trying new things, it starts to create what I call the oops, sorry, those are the large custom applications. So what it does is starts to try to create these Excel, Word, and Access type applications, and I put them down here in this quadrant here because they're flexible. Individual business units don't have a large scope, so they can kind of keep changing them as they need for their specific business process that they are working on. And they may not necessarily care as much about the historical data that gets generated. So they can kind of change things pretty easily. But the data itself is not very usable because between business units, one might say, something like mid-May, and another one might color code different processes that some, I don't know, file or object has to go through, or the stages that something has to go through. Um, and really, they might not be interested in all the same kind of stages that this other business unit is interested in, and so you have this very different data sets between business units. The other thing is people store the data, and I put quote unquote applications in different places. They store it on their drive, their C drive, their shared drive. They store it in SharePoint. They store it on somewhere else, and the data is just kind of all over the place in a mess. Um, from a departmental perspective, it's very difficult to get value out of this, even though there's a lot of value in it. It's just how to get it. Um, so that's why I am particularly looking at the Power Platform because it basically is creating a kind of fence, I would say, for the business analysts to start creating applications that have to more or less be up in this high value quadrant. And I say that because the platform kind of necessitates or very much encourages the sharing of data, the plugging into existing data that already is in the organization, rather than inventing new information. And uh, and because it's accessible for the business analysts to create and manipulate, then it becomes more flexible and they can have smaller apps in this area for their specific business unit that plugs into the bigger organization as a whole. So the Power Platform is really consisting of three main parts with some connectors in the middle to join it together. The first part, I would say, is the Power Apps. This is really it's a low code environment where business analysts can create their own web applications to collect data that would otherwise otherwise exist in an Excel spreadsheet or an Access database or just in people's heads and conversations between people. It's a way. It basically creates. It's an easy way to capture that data. Um, and then there's the Power BI. And what's really great about this is it's a model-based dashboarding tool rather than most of the other tools that are report-based. And model-based, it allows the analyst to solve, I would say, more problems because it preserves the relationships between data elements more easily, and it allows for these kinds of functions that can get more insight out of it. Now, I'm saying that very broadly. I'd like to do another whole talk on that, but it kind of out of the scope for this for this talk. But I'll get into that another time. But all that to say is the business analysts can create dashboards that would allow them to share information more easily with other people, and it all plugs into these different data sources. Any data source, whether it's a CSV file, a web service, database, or whatever. And then there's Microsoft Flow, which allows the business analysts to create these kinds of just automation between applications. You can have a flow get triggered based on some action that the user creates within a Power App, or you can have a flow get triggered based on something that happened in an Office 365 application. And you'll see throughout all the Office 365 applications, you'll see all these little flow icons or little connectors in everywhere. And what that does is it allows the business to say, hey, when there's this event, when there's this thing that happens, I want it to trigger something else. And you can have these things just auto trigger. You can have it listening to data in your organization's database, or you can have it listening to data in some web service like Twitter or a news feed or something. So as soon as a particular thing is mentioned, then trigger this event. So and then you have the data connectors and the common data service and common data model. And I'll get into these in a little bit more detail another time, but suffice it to say that these more or less help keep the apps that the business analysts create and the dashboards that the business analysts create all kind of up in that top right hand corner of high value for the business. And then, of course, all of this is built on top of Azure, which is, as you probably know, a very robust IT infrastructure, and it allows the business to connect into all kinds of cloud services that will be available, or that are available, I should say. And then what I want to talk quickly about is the data strategy as made available by the Privy Council. There's a little website here at the bottom, a link at the bottom here that describes kind of where that's from. And I'd just like to show how well this aligns. Now, I was doing some research here to solve some problems for the Department of Justice, and I was working very closely with the Business Analytics Center, who I think honestly had a vision for this kind of thing well in advance, like years ago. And we've just been struggling to really get it to be in a sustainable format. So anyway, in doing this research for the Power Platform, I jotted down some notes, and I realized afterwards just how well it aligned with the data strategy. And I just wanted to show here quickly. So the way I see the Power Platform and how it all sits in with the Office 365 is what it does is it offers a framework that encourages the good quality data. It leverages data that exists in the organization, and it's focuses on sharing that data with others in the organization. So, and then it empowers the business to store and use data more easily. I would say that's absolutely true, given what I've been looking at. Um, and then it really is all about turning data into valuable insights and improves the understanding. So I would say that's really where the Power BI comes in. So grabbing data not just um, from these from people's heads, but also from these places that would have typically resided in Excel spreadsheets or Access databases, all become accessible, and you can now more easily turn all that data into insights and understanding for the organization. Um, and then with Microsoft Flow there and it connecting in with the Power Apps and Office 365 and Power BI, really it's really just integrating in with the business to really improve all the processes. And by creating kind of a fence around the high value area and empowering the business analysts to be able to create their own business apps and their own dashboards and processes and things like this, it really is fostering a marketplace of these kind of mini apps, and helping to innovate. So people aren't as bogged down anymore in this approach with submitting these approval requests for applications or things like this through an IT department. They can actually just start creating stuff themselves in their own little area and try it out, in that sort of business unit. Um, they don't have to run everything through a central, a central sort of authority in some sense. Um, and then, of course, because everything is all sitting on Azure, it's all backed by a very robust cloud infrastructure. And then there's the fact that, so with the model based dashboarding tool Power BI, people are able to see better, I guess, how data connects to itself or connects to other entities, and then there's the value of just being able to work with the data. Not only can you read data and start to analyze it and share it with others, but you can also collect data and you can see just what it takes to collect data, and that whole process, allowing more and more people to be able to do that whole loop of collecting, retrieving, and sharing data, really improves, in my opinion, the data literacy overall, but in a way of action. And so, anyway, this is something that, like I said, the Business Analytics Center at the Department of Justice has been wanting to do for a long time, and just has not really had a really good way of doing it. And that's why we're taking the Power Platform very seriously. And my mission really is to help them through that transition, get them all ready, and train as many of the analysts as possible, and get everybody hooked up. So this is just a little word about me. My name, Jason Annable. I'm a independent consultant through my company Magnera.ca, and here you can see I'm a certified solutions expert in data management and analytics. And here are just some of the words that describe my kind of every week things that I'm kind of got my head in. So yeah, feel free to reach out, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them. Um, and I'm looking at creating some more videos to help. So if you like this, just give it a little like. Let me know. If you want to see me talk about specific things, let me know as well. I'd be happy to put together little videos that describe that. I'm currently building out a tabular data model, and on a data warehouse that we've built, and then helping get the Power Platform in place. So, yep, shoot me an email or give me a text or something like that, and hope to hear from you.